pursue the things of the enemy, things that were against the will of God. And so God would destroy and start over. He would destroy and empower those that believed in him. But when we look at this text, this is after the flood, and God says, you know what? He says, I'm noticing that that's not the answer. That's not going to work. I'm no longer going to destroy those, because I'm noticing there is something that comes from the man's imagination, even as a child, that is evil. There is something that has gotten in his nature that is evil. His nature has changed. And so these things are happening. And so instead of me starting over all of the time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a law in place that says there's always going to be cause and effect based on the choices you choose. He says there's always going to be a balance. He said there's always going to be seed time and harvest. There's going to be cold and heat, summer, winter, day and night. In other words, he says there's always going to be, things are going to stay in sync, in balance based on how you choose. You'll go through seasons where you're up, seasons where you're down, but your choices matter in the outcome. So he gave us another level of, if you would, authority, or another level of awareness of our authority, and saying, listen, you're not going to just blame this on me and say, I'm a wrathful God. No, you're going to start taking accountability for the choices you've made. Because I'm going to allow you to go through seasons where you're up, and I'm going to allow you to go through more difficult seasons. But what choices are you going to make to create the proper outcomes of your life? And so we want to read a couple of stories, deal with a couple of stories based on that. Let's go to Luke chapter 15, down around verse 11. And of course, this is the story of the prodigal son. And the prodigal son ends up, we know the story is very familiar, most of us, he ends up having a wilderness experience because of his choices. And so let's read this.
And he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that fall to me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after, the younger gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would fain he had filled his belly with a husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and I am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him.
Stop there. Look at this. First of all, I want to break this down into little pieces so that we can see some points out of this story. First of all, we call this the prodigal story. It's the prodigal son. When you look at the word prodigal, prodigal means to be wasteful and reckless in your spending habits. Wasting and reckless in how you spend or handle money. So oftentimes we're calling him prodigal because he went off. But how many people have been prodigal in nature just because you're wasteful and reckless in your finance? You may not have distanced yourself. You may not have run off to a different place, but you put yourself in a financial wilderness because you've been wasteful and reckless in how you spend. Every wilderness is not a distance. Some people are sitting in a wilderness experience right here in the midst of everybody else, having an experience in a wilderness, and you've put yourself in isolation in your own world. But you're still in existence around us. But because of the decisions you make with your finance, now you're in a wilderness. And oftentimes, what happens is we put ourselves in a financial wilderness, and then we expect everybody else to bail us out of the wilderness that we put ourselves in. And as soon as we get bailed out, we put ourselves back in that place. One thing I know, I was driving the other day, and one thing God really dropped in my spirit for me and to tell others, even in this season. This is a season of tough love, where God is even saying to us as people that are the helpers, people that are the givers, people that are the lenders. God is even saying in this season, we have to realize that we're not to enable people. That's a big message to me. There's people that have put themselves in a wilderness, or even God put them in a wilderness, but they're in a wilderness because of poor decision making, and they need to hit rock bottom. But they never hit rock bottom because we enable them to do the same behavior. And we've got to realize that they're there for a season with purpose. They've got to learn some things. So that's a little message in that. But then when you look at this, the Bible says, first of all, he's the younger of two sons. And the reason why the Bible specifies that he's the younger of two sons, the Bible is letting us know that he is in an immature place in his life. Immature. He is not mature to the place where he even needs to handle such level of finance. That's why he's asking for stuff that he doesn't need to be asking for. Prodigal son, in Luke 15, 11 through 32. He's asking for stuff that he shouldn't even ask for at his age. And it was not time for his father to even distribute inheritance. He wasn't dying. He wasn't dead. So in other words, he's asking for something before time. He's asking for something out of season. And whenever you ask for something that even God has ordained for you to obtain, when you ask for it before it's in its proper season and you're trying to get it out of season, that is an indication of a spirit of greed. And the prodigal son is reckless and greedy. And because of that, he ends up in his own wilderness. The Bible says not many days after, he goes out and he goes off into a faraway land, faraway country, and the Bible says that there he wasted his substance with riotous living. The root word of riotous is riot. He wasted his substance into disorder. He wasted his substance in chaos. He wasted his substance in ungodly living. In other words, he sowed into chaotic living. Anything that you sow in, you're going to reap from. The Bible says what I say in Genesis 8:22. As long as the earth remains, there'll be seed time and harvest, which represents seasons. There'll be a season of sowing and a season of harvest. And his season of sowing, he wasted his season of sowing into all kinds of things that were ungodly and that were chaotic. And so he began to reap. In his season of reaping, he began to reap out of the stuff he had sown into. And then the Bible says he went into famine. He spent everything he had, went into famine. Not only did he go into famine, but the land around him went into famine. Now, because he chose to go to his dad out of greed, to ask for his portion too early. Because he left from his safe place, being in his father's house, and went into a place that he shouldn't have been in the first place. Because he chose to mishandle and misappropriate the money that he was given, now because of those three choices, he is in famine and the country is in famine. Do we understand how our choices not only affect us, but they affect everything that is connected? The people that are connected to us, the environment that is connected to us, everything that is around us is affected by what choices we make. Now, he is in a land that he should not have been in. He has put himself in a wilderness. This land was not a wilderness for the people that were already there. Oh. It was not a wilderness for the people that were already there. But because of his choices, and he put himself there, now this has become a wilderness for everybody in this area who was never ordained to be in the wilderness. How have our choices affected others? Come here, Jonah. When Jonah was on the boat trying to go the opposite direction from where God told him to go, and the water started going back and fro, and the boat starts being tossed all over, the people start running around, the mariners, the Bible said, running around like, what is going on? Okay, this is not natural. We know what happens during this season when we out here in these waters. We have trained for this. We know how this goes. This ain't natural. Whose God is mad at them? Who is in trouble with your God? Who? Somebody on this boat got us going through some problems that ain't ordained for us because you in a place you shouldn't be. Jonah, it's me. Well, you can throw me overboard. Don't worry. Deuces, so sorry. Hope you make it out there in the water. Hope you make it out there in the wild place. You think this is a wild place. Hope you make it out there. Because now you're not going to disrupt all of our lives and put us in a place that we were never ordained to be, because we allowed you to stay. Because we allowed you to stay connected. How many people, I told you, God says in this season we got to stop enabling people to do bad behavior. How many people's lives have your life been affected because you allowed somebody who was out of place to stay connected to you that you should have thrown overboard? And now you're going through a wilderness experience because of somebody that's out of place in your life. Anyway, Bible says all the land goes into famine, and he began to be in want. Want means that he began to notice things that were missing, things that he took for granted, things he really desired now. Oh my goodness, I took it for granted that I would always have certain things in my daddy's house, but now, since I got too grown for my britches and put myself out here, I realize all the things that I'm missing that I just took for granted because I thought it would always just be here. But it was not just always here. It had a lot to do with where I was. Because I was in my dad's house, there was a safe place. That was the place that God had ordained for me to be processed. But now, since I took myself out of the process of maturing and put myself over here in a place that I never was ordained to be, now I realize I'm missing some of the essentials. Now I can see that I was making bad choices. My decisions were wrong. Now I realize I really don't know what I'm doing. I know I said I know how to do this, but now I realize I really don't. I'm wanting information. I'm wanting to know how to get out of this. I'm wanting to know how he did it. How did you build that house like that? How did you keep the family together? How did you build up your finances? Because what I've been doing ain't been working. I'm out here partying with mine, and now they're gone. So it's something I'm missing. He was in want. The Bible says he went and finally got a job. Oh, I need a job. I didn't know that this money wouldn't last forever. It was so much of it when he gave it to me. I actually need a job. What is the default of men? I tell men that all the time. Like, you guys having problems? Bible says a man doesn't work, he doesn't need. I don't care what you do in ministry. I don't care what you call to. The default to a natural man is go get a job. Just go get a job. God called me. He did. He called you to work first. Because he called you as a man before he called you as preacher, apostle, whatever.